Podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live. Hello, welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast. My name is Dan Rolinson. I'm joined by my colleagues Matt Kendrick and James Rushton. How are you both this afternoon? Lovely Sunday afternoon.
Let Matt go first. He looks happy.
My face is the same. Win, lose or draw, I look like a fat, miserable boiled egg.
Yeah, just before we started this, you got a lamp on and you look bright orange, like a little egg. You seem to have sorted it just about. Nice top you got on, by the way. It's a good shirt.
It's feeling a bit snug again, to be honest. I've had too many on a little chocolate orange eggs, so I'm a bit snug.
Football. Should we talk about the game? I would put on Facebook that it's kind of a game of two halves, and usually kind of associate that with played poorly for one half and better the other and managed to get yourself a result. Villa did all that besides getting the result. They've still lost the game, but an improvement in the second half. But that's just because the first half was so terrible.
Yeah, it was just a boring performance. And I think most Villa fans expected that it would be a bit hard today without Jack Grealish, without Matty Cash. I mean, the news, it was rumoured, wasn't it, that Jack Grealish wouldn't play. Wasn't in the lineup today, obviously. I've expected a flatter performance, but that first half was really, really bad. I think a few players went missing. Not going to make it a Ross Barkley show again, but he had a really poor game entirely, pretty much defined by a really bad first half from Villa as well. So, glad we picked up and it eventually overall better than I expected. Still a shame though, isn't it, that we can't make a result out of that.
Yeah, I thought it'd go on to be an embarrassing 4 or 5-0, to be honest, the way the first half was going. So the fact it's only a 2-1 is some consolation. But to be fair, Villa weren't miles away from scraping a draw at the end there. We talked a lot about, that Mings header right at the end, to be fair, should have probably been on target. But we talked a lot about Dean Smith and his tactical nous and his game management and things like this. I thought the substitutions that he made were the right ones today, and we looked better in that second half and after those subs as well. So I think we were running Leicester close towards the end of that, and maybe another 10-15 minutes so we might have been able to break them down, but we didn't, and that's another defeat for Villa. But overall, not massively disappointed, just because we have shown that we've improved in that second half. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead, Matt.
I am pretty disappointed.
Oh yeah, okay, fair enough.
Listen, Leicester are a really good team, and they've got some really good players. But I don't think we got near them for half an hour, and by then it was
your first half was awful. Yeah, first half was ridiculous.
Too late. But games last for 90 minutes, Dan, and you've got to be more competitive than that. And we knew Jack Grealish wasn't going to be there. So who else is there? Who else is on that pitch who's actually tried to go out of the way to influence the game? You know, Villa was so predictable for much of it. I don't know. I don't want to be too harsh, because we know that Grealish makes Villa tick. But you know, Barkley's off it again. It's not a Dean Smith thing for me to carry people. You know, you pick players on form. You know, I know Marvellous McCamber's not going to come in and play Ross Barkley's role, but you know, what kind of message does that send out when he plays? The couple of times that he plays well. Can't get a look in the next week. And like James says, we don't want to dig out Ross Barkley, because there's a lot of players, not necessarily today either. I don't want to get too carried away by Villa losing to Leicester, but there's a lot of players who aren't quite at it, but are still getting in the team again. And maybe that is because Villa don't have they've got a top 8 team at the moment, but haven't got a top 8 squad. And maybe that is the case that Dean Smith still goes to the tried and trusted. But I don't know. It just left me really frustrated. But what I will say on the flip side is, like you guys have said, it could have. I thought we were going for a similar story to last year at Villa Park when they battered us 4-1 in the end, did they? So the fact that Villa have had enough about them to come out and pull something back early on in the second half, I thought that was an opportunity missed, though. I thought once Villa got that goal back, they probably could have had another strong 10 or 15 minutes to really kind of test Leicester. I don't think that came. I think Leicester got over, Actually, has Kasper Schmeichel let go of Ollie Watkins yet? Because I think by the time he'd finally let go of him, Leicester just were able to compose themselves and make all the running again. But yeah, so perhaps, we ebb and flow here, don't we? We take it in terms of who could be the negative one, who could be the positive one, and all that kind of thing, and we rotate those positions. Perhaps I'm being miserable old Matt today, but I just thought we could have been almost sent out a message of intent. We're not a one-man team with Jack Grealish. We can come and still make the running against you. But before we decided to wake up, we were two goals down, albeit to a very good Leicester City team.
Yeah, we'll talk about Grealish in a second. I've got you here and the comments on this side of the screen. I'm kind of looking at both and frowning at a couple of comments that just came in saying, "Stop defending Barkley." A couple of people said. I don't think we've been defending Ross Barkley at any point on this podcast, especially in the last few episodes in particular. We've talked about him not being anywhere near it. I think the most frustrating part is that he just doesn't look like he's interested to me. That's the thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't press. I know that's not particularly his game, and people argue that's not his role to press from the front, but it's a team game if that's the way we want to play. And you've got Ollie Watkins chasing every ball. Ross Barkley has to do the same, whether that's his style or not. He's on loan at Villa and he has to do what he's told effectively. I'm also sick of him sulking off every time he comes off the pitch, to be honest. It took him about 10 minutes to get back to the dugout from the other side of the pitch, which, I don't know, I just don't like it. I've really changed my opinion on Barkley since he came. At first, I'm thinking, yeah, pay whatever, and now I'm thinking, get out of the side, basically, because Jacob Ramsey comes on at 19 or however old he is and looks like he's willing to put in a shift, and that makes Villa play differently. So whether Ross Barkley is more talented a footballer is not really up for debate, because you've got to work hard to be in this Dean Smith team, and Barkley doesn't do that.
Yeah, I think there's a place that you can occupy between, not being an apologist for Ross Barkley and not inviting a massive pylon of Ross Barkley.
Yeah, of course.
I think we've occupied that place. Do I think he is? God, I've got to the position where I start asking myself rhetorical questions. Do I think he should be in the team next week against Leeds? No, I don't. I don't think he's done enough. But equally, I don't think that we can solely dig out Ross Barkley.
Agreed. Agreed. Douglas Luiz, who's been fantastic for the most part, has been poor for the last few weeks as well, or the last couple of months even, to be honest. And after he went off with Barkley and it's Sanson and Ramsey coming in, we look better. So I don't know whether it's as simple as you just go, we'll start them next game, we'll be better, because I don't see Smith changing two of his midfield, especially with Grealish potentially being out. We don't know at this point, but you would assume so. I don't see us making that many changes, and it'll probably be the same 11 again, but you look at that and think, well, if you play the same 11, you'll get the same result.
Yeah, I think a really strange theory. I'll let you speak in a minute, James, I promise. Do you think, almost subliminally or subconsciously, the starting midfielders, now that Conor Hourihane has gone out on loan, know that there probably aren't going to be people starting ahead of them?
Well, that's what Sanson's for then, isn't it? We signed him in the summer and he's played 10 minutes a game, and I know he's got to get used to the league and fitness and blah, 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 but he comes on and looks sharp, and you're looking at Barkley thinking, well, I don't know how he's getting in the team ahead of Sanson at the minute. So you can talk about how...
Will it? I think that'll be the obvious change next week, because Smith's no mug. He can't persevere. If as we expect, Jack Grealish is going to be out for a short while, then Smith knows that this team, albeit the start they've made to this season, aren't good enough to carry people who are performing kind of 4 or 5 or 6 out of 10 each week. You can't do it. Oh. It sends the wrong message.
Yeah, I think the thing with Ross Barkley is, for me, he could be Villa's highest paid player on a loan deal. And I know money and wages doesn't equate to on-pitch performance, because we've seen teams like Villa chuck money away at highly paid players. But for the money he's on, he has to set the bar for the performances, even over Jack Grealish, even over the captain. He's come in, he's a player tipped for the elite. He hasn't really kicked on. There's been criticism. He's come here to prove himself. Something ain't going right at all.
He started out like that when we first came in. It's like, oh, fair play to him. He looks like he's going to really revolutionise what Villa can do in the midfield, and he's a massive upgrade on everyone else who was already there. I think that's what's the frustrating part, is that he's nowhere near the standard he set for himself, and he scored on his debut against Liverpool, and in such a fantastic win. I'm pretty sure that was his debut. He's looked nowhere near that now, and everyone's going, get him out of the side, drive him back to Chelsea, and it's just such polar opposites to what we were seeing. I think regardless of his wage or whatever he's earning, it's his standard that he should set for himself. His targets were to get into the his target was to get into the Euros.
But I'm saying,
to come and play for Villa. I don't know. Maybe it's a fitness thing. He got injured, didn't he?
Surely, he's got a fairly impressive back catalogue of experience and quality. Is it attitude? Is it fitness? Is it a combination of both?
I was going to make an argument for fitness, and then I was talking about that when he did get back fit, Villa's training ground was closed due to COVID, so that's obviously not helped his recovery and stuff like that. And obviously he's had injury issues in the past, but I think it's attitude. I think attitude plays a part. Just generally not being with it and being a bit disgruntled, and just the way he acts when he gets substituted and things like that. It just doesn't look like he's willing to put that shift and put that fight in. And when you're being rewarded with starting every game, and pretty much everyone but Dean Smith is saying that he shouldn't be, you kind of be looking at that going, well, put some effort in, mate, and you'll get a bit more leeway when you don't play well. It's been a run of games now where Barkley's been nowhere near it, and everyone else should be saying that that's it. You've had your chance. Put someone else back in there.
Yeah, with Villa's other two midfielders, if they have a 6 out of 10, it's not because they haven't run themselves into the ground as well, which is genuinely one of the most frustrating things. I think what you can say about the Dean Smith team is that at least it looks like there is effort being applied. And I don't know, because you're not in Ross Barkley's head. I'm not the guy himself. I don't know him, so I don't know if I can criticise that. But taking ages to come off the pitch, begin sprinting to get a useless throw in, and Barkley strolling towards it. There is a difference in the application from the eye test. I don't know if that is actually the case. Again, not knowing the guy, but it fails the eye test for fans. It's the most basic thing, and it's why people loved bang average players like Alan Hutton, because it looks like they're trying, even if their effort is poor. And that's not the same with Ross Barkley.
I don't understand why he'd come and toss it off, though. He's got this kind of this carrot of trying to get into the England squad, of being part of either kind of forcing the hand of the new Chelsea manager now, or of convincing Aston Villa to part with some cash to join a club that's going places. Why? And listen, I'm not, like I say, I'm no kind of amateur or expert psychologist, but why would you do that? It can't be. Is it a big time thing? Is he really that big time that he thinks there's that much difference between Chelsea's reserves and Aston Villa's first team? I don't get it. I don't get what's not quite happening. Whether it's frustration with himself, but if it is, as a senior pro, you should be able to channel that into working on your weaknesses and getting better. I don't know. It's a bit of a mystery for me, because the Ross Barkley that we saw glimpses of, when Villa were, let's hark back to it for, we might as well dine out on it forever. When Villa were battering Liverpool, that's not it's not inhabiting the same body now. Yeah. It's frustrating the hell out of me. So, he must frustrate the hell out of the player himself. Difference is he can do something about it. We can't.
But I suppose every person is different, isn't it, and how they handle that pressure. If his reaction to him knowing that he's not good enough kind of puts him further into a hole that he can't perform to a better standard, he's never going to be able to get out of that rut. So that is then the manager and the coach's job to take him out of the firing line to play somebody else, because he's not going to play himself back into form. I didn't really want this to be a Ross Barkley.
No, move on anyway.
And we've talked about him pretty much every episode for the last 3 or 4 weeks. I want to talk about some of the other players that aren't up to scratch either. Because
before we do,
he's not the only one.
Before we do, I think Smith's been quoted saying Grealish could have a chance of playing next week against Leeds. Now, I don't. We've been here before, mate. It's a very much a kind of, it's a kind of, I don't know, eat out to help out kind of, everything's going to be fine kind of way looking at things, isn't it? We've seen these kind of, he's only got a slight knock, develop into, turning up with legs in both plaster and, wrapped up like a mummy. So I don't know. What's your thoughts on the Jack Grealish injury mystery that's rumbled since Friday lunchtime, and B, how much we missed him today?
Well, I'll let you go in a sec, James. I'm not massively bothered about Villa not disclosing the injury before the game. Villa don't have to say anything, whatever. The extent of the injury is a different thing, because, like we said, we've been here before where you're told, we're back a couple of weeks, it's just a knock, and then, like you say, it develops into 2 or 3 months away with other players as well. That's what I don't really like, because if it is a serious-ish injury and it's a month, which I would class, well, obviously it's not serious, but you know what I mean, it's missing 3, 4, 5 games, that's very much a different thing to him coming out and saying, he might be back for next week, because that's a lie, isn't it, essentially, because the medical team won't be saying next week, so don't come out and undersell it. I don't see him back against Leeds. Villa will just say, it's a precaution. We'll give him another week. We'll give him another week. And before you know it, we're at the end of the season and he's missed 2 months. As for missing him today, obviously you're always going to miss Jack Grealish, but I don't think that was really the problem, to be honest. I think the problem was that the midfield just couldn't get a control of the game, and Leicester's tactics were better than ours, effectively, for that first half, and the damage was done at half-time, as much as Villa were better in the second half, probably were never going to get back into it.
Yeah, the Grealish thing. It seemed like the time we were missing him was the last 10 minutes when it was just shut down for Leicester. And you needed that player with the X factor to kind of just tear him apart and get Villa that point. Without a player like Grealish, and especially, the guy we spoke about so much, Ross Barkley, if he's not stepping up, who is? And, there's a call for rotation. It's going to be enforced now because Jack Grealish isn't going to be the first Villa, touch wood, he's not going to be the first Villa starter to get injured over the course of a season. This midfield isn't rotating. There's going to be unfortunate injuries. So someone's got to step up. Absolutely. Whether it's Aston getting an actual start for once, whether it's Jacob Ramsey starting another game, whether it's someone rotating in for McGinn or Louise, something's got to change because Villa have been forced into changes now, and they didn't even happen at the situation when they were forced to. Don't know what you think, Matt.
I just think the Grealish thing. I just think the mind games from Smith are fascinating. About we never have these kind of secrets, do we? When it's Courtney Hawes, it's just really. And listen, don't blame him. You use these things to your advantage, and the fact that Leicester kind of still effectively lined up to try and stop Jack Grealish down that wing. Not that it affected their kind of readjusted game plan too much, but. To me, it's more fuel to the fire. It's more ammunition for the critics who say Aston Villa are a one-man team. And to me, again, suddenly becoming Mr. Doom and Gloom. It's Villa need to find another way of playing without Jack Grealish. I'm not saying that Jack Grealish is going to disappear next summer or whatever, but there will be times where he'll have suspensions, and we know that he never completes a full season. And, and that's not a criticism of the guy, because, to be honest, I'm amazed he plays and starts as many games as he does, the batterings that he takes from defenders. But, that's up for the, what we've said previously when Villa have had injuries this season is we've praised the likes of Nakamba when he stepped in, and El Ghazi and Trezeguet, and when Smith has had to rotate because of injuries, we've praised them for stepping up. But so the squad players invariably have stepped up, but now we've got starters who aren't stepping up, and that's the frustrating thing from me. That you set the standards now. A lot of these players have set the standards and almost kind of convinced us. Kind of tempted us into the fact that Villa can be a team that's pushing for Europe. Now, if Villa are going to be a team that's pushing for Europe, those players have got to be players who can push for Europe every single week. And that's the frustrating thing from me, that when those players' standards are slipping, either Smith's not recognising them, hooking them off and giving other people the chance, or they're not recognising it and doing absolutely everything that they can to turn these kind of 4 and 5s into the 7s, 8s and 9s that this Villa team needs if they're going to be competing in the higher echelons.
The thing about that is the really, really interesting thing about stepping up is, I think the Duncan Alexander, is it Oily Sailor on Twitter, and he comes out with the mad stats. He had a really interesting one today I was thinking about, and it was the fact that in 99, the classic Man United lineup only started once together in the league. And in the Arsenal Invincible season, the classic lineup that everyone picks out, the perfect Arsenal 11, they only started twice together in the league. There was rotation, plenty of rotation, second stringers and third stringers stepping up to supplement it. So Villa have got a serious, not a serious issue, but Villa have an issue if your starting players aren't stepping up, because you're going to have to rely on people who aren't even being picked to step up. They're not even going to get the chance to step up if there's none of this rotation in the first place.
Well, let's talk about one of those players who's had to kind of step up, because Matty Cash was missing today. And is it Ahmed? Is it Ahmed? Anyway, Elmo's started today, and to be fair to him, I think he's performed a bit like the kind of player that he is. Am I being fair to him? He's performed like a kind of
33-year-old, however old he is.
A rusty squad player who's in the winter of his career, probably not going to play that many more Premier League games in future. Up against Harvey Barnes.
Yeah, I actually didn't think he was that bad. Am I alone in thinking that? I think Barnes had the measure of him for sure, but Barnes is a very good player and Elmo's a 33-year-old squad player, like you just said. He's never been known for his pace, has he, Elmo? And Harvey Barnes is. So you don't look at that on paper and think he'd win that battle. I think the point fans will probably make is why is Gilbert playing in the French league now? We need a backup right back. But the difference between Gilbert and Elmo for me as a backup player.
I think Harvey Barnes would have given Gilbert a bit of a game. I think he'd given
pace. I think Elmo's not going to be here in the long term, is he? Gilbert possibly is. You'd expect that Gilbert will go and develop in the next few months on loan, playing regular football. Elmo stays with Villa to be back up in the event that Matty Cash gets injured, and that's exactly what's happened. He'll have to play the next 4 or 5 games and hopefully does enough of a steady job in a decent defence and with a decent goalkeeper behind him, and we don't really notice too much at how Elmo defends. Going forward, he's fine. His crosses are all right. So I don't think he was terrible.
No, not like he dropped the bomb at all. It's just
and go, oh, Elmo's coming in. Oh, that's ruined it. We're going to lose because of that. That's not the reason. He's not been great, but Sal Mohammadi, what do we expect?
Yeah, we pretty much lost because we weren't at the races when Leicester were. We, played too lightly with them in the first half. It was within 10, 15 minutes that they scored 2 goals against us. Completely it's again like the Villa sucker punch, and there's no answer for that. And then when they've got the option to bring in 1 defensive midfielder, 2 defensive midfielders, 3 defensive midfielders, and lock the complete game down, Villa don't have an answer for that without Jack Grealish, and that's going to be the big question going forward again. It'll be less about what is Ross Barkley doing wrong and more how can Villa actually function without Jack Grealish. And there are signs of it. Leicester were forced to sit back. Leicester was sitting back and giving the game away because they had a really comfy, one of the comfiest 2-1 leads going because we couldn't break them down. But still some glimpses of positive signs even without our best player. It's just when the X factor is needed, the question is going to be who is going to bring it, if not Ross Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, I questioned today, and I think I put this on Twitter, and I do acknowledge that Villa got battered 4-1 at home in front of a packed Villa Park last season, but I do question whether a full Villa Park would have given the team a little bit of lift intensity-wise today. And having scored from their only real meaningful opportunity up to that point, you do wonder why, the likes of, I think McGinn's gambled at the near post for that. Traore's come around the back and got into the box. Why is that not happening? Why is that not happening more and more? And I thought Watkins was probably one of the brighter lights today. I thought he did what he could with limited support around him. But to me, it was a Villa team that didn't quite believe in what they were doing today, and didn't have that man to lean on who gives them that belief. And that was a little bit disappointing because, notwithstanding how crap we were against Brighton last week, there should still be enough confidence in that squad and in each other to be a little bit more on the front foot than they were today. And I thought it was a team that played within themselves, not frightened, but not quite believing that they had enough to go and win the game.
Yeah, I don't really know what the solutions for problems like this are either, because you've got fans in the comments saying that Kessler should come in and have a chance at right back, and Ramsey should start against Leeds, and Ollie Watkins gets injured or whatever, and Louis Barry steps in. And I'll just look at that and think, well, they're kids learning the game. They're not going to come in and make a massive difference for Villa in the Premier League, as good as they might be.
I don't know what the solutions are. I don't think you throw all of them in. I think you throw
obviously.
one. The kid at left back for Leicester has been given a chance and has taken it.
He was fantastic, actually, wasn't he? Some of the blocks he put on Traore were it's like he's a regular starter.
Yeah. So, listen, it's always the way, isn't it? We spoke about this before. The solution is always, the one who's not playing. There's always kind of unsung heroes on the bench. Regardless of who comes in, it's got to be mixed up a little bit. We've got Leeds next. I mean, let's just assume that Dean Smith's giving it to us straight, and that Jack Grealish has got a chance of playing in that game. If Grealish plays, what changes do we need to make? Is it as simple as Ramsey for Barkley? Do we think that Elmo can have the energy against a Leeds team that's relentless with the way that they press and break, or do we think, is it one step too far to throw one, Kessler in there? I mean, it's quite, I know he's played in the cup tie, but it's quite a thing to throw him into a Premier League game.
Exactly.
I think a lot of managers will tell you it's easier to integrate kind of midfielders and attacking players at that age than it is a young defender. I Gareth Barry might tell you differently. I don't know. Or how do you trust the same team to go to the well again and see what they can produce?
I don't think you'd play the same team again, but I don't know what changes you'd make. I don't think you'd throw Ramsey in there. I think Sanson probably is the obvious answer to try and help the midfield. Canberra even potentially, but is that a little bit too defensive perhaps? So I've just seen that. Do you remember one of the previous episodes we did? Someone was like, "Oh, drop Grealish and he needs a rest and see how we do without him." I think we know how we'll do without him now. I don't know what the changes are. I wouldn't be chucking Kessler in. I'd just say Elmo's got 5 or 6 games. We're just gonna have to deal with it.
Oh, with Kessler, Kessler Hayden, what's really interesting is in the under-23s games, he does look like the player that's a cut above. He looks like, ever since that Liverpool FA Cup game, he smashed it there, to be fair. He looks like he's kind of, even at a very young age, really kind of outgrowing that step. So not a start, but maybe there should be minutes for him. I know we've only got three changes to make, and we're forced into making us to fix the midfield at the moment. But I don't see why we should be so scared of a player like maybe Chukwuemeka. It might be too early for someone like Chukwuemeka and even Louis Barry to some extent. But Kessler Hayden, when I've seen him in the under-23 games, really looks like he's smashing it to pieces. So I think there should be minutes on the table for him, to be fair.
What I would say is that Villa are in a position now where they can experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I know we'll be disappointed if Villa don't finish in the top 10 now, and I still think we will. But you're not throwing these people into a relegation battle. You're throwing them into a team that should have confidence. I know that's been knocked recently, but if you're going to experiment, do it when you've almost got your points on the board. The first objective this season was to stay safe again. I know Villa haven't quite secured that yet, but they will do. So, like I said, if you're going to do it now, if you're going to do it at any time, do it now. If it doesn't work, change it.
We'll come on to our kind of expectations for the rest of the season in a second. Just back on team news very quickly. I think I'd be more comfortable with Elmo for the next few games if Trezeguet was playing in front of him as well, which I was about to say just before. But then El Ghazi, I'm not massively bothered about. That means putting Traore on the left-hand side if Grealish is out. It's not really his game, is it, to be on the left-hand side, because he always wants to be on the right and cutting in, but I just feel a little bit more comfortable with that Trezeguet-Elmo combination working together to just try to track back and help, because Target is a stronger fullback than Elmo, so have Trezeguet on the right-hand side. I don't know whether that would help. So people in the comments saying that Ramsey's ready for a start, which I agree with. I think he's a very good player. I just don't know whether you just throw him in straight away because Barkley's not playing when you've signed 15 million Sanson as your starting kind of first substitute. I think it makes more sense that he would come in. I mean, there's no reason why you don't play both, to be fair, but I don't see Smith making that many changes. I just wanted to end with a point from Jamie Gray on Twitter. He said, the honest reality is that we're a million miles better than last season, but we're not quite as good as a lot of the fans seem to think we are. I think we're an 8th to 10th place team, which is brilliant progress, but some fans think we're top 6. We're not, but we will get there. Is there a point when we kind of write off our European dreams? Me and James spoke about this on a little live podcast we did in the week, that it's probably time to go, and Villa aren't quite good enough to finish 6th. When you go and see West Ham beating Spurs today and getting into the top 4, I think they are now, that'd probably be the ones that upset the regular spots rather than Villa would from this position. But you never know. Is it just safe to assume now that Villa are probably going to finish somewhere between 7th and maybe 12th, and the rest of the season is experimentation and kind of planning for next year, or is that silly to write it off just yet?
Yeah, I wouldn't write it off. What I would say is maybe keep your expectations fairly low. But your hopes still up high. Like, you should still be thinking what we can achieve, but we shouldn't be ruthlessly writing off the manager, the squad, but considering pretty much the goal of the season to progress, to get better. When you listen to all the pre-season interviews, what everyone wanted, get that extra half a point a game over the course of a season, get this, get that. The interview Jack Grealish on Tuesday, season as better than anyone's expectations, even the players. Villa have done their job. They have done way better, wow better than last season, and that's the trouble. Is it in the mindset? Do they step off now, or do they keep pushing on? But like Matt said, chance now for experimentation, chance now to throw your cards on the table and see what you can get out of these games when everything's running away from you. So maybe my expectations would be 7 to 12, but I'm still hoping for Europe. Absolutely.
Matt, anything to add?
don't think you can write anything off, can you? I mean, how many games are left? Just looking at the table, so there's 15 games left, and it's typical Villa. It's typical Villa. Lull us into expecting the earth, and then give us ammunition to moan when you fall below those high standards. If Villa hadn't set those high standards for most of the season so far, we'd have just thought, oh well, it's Leicester, up near the top. But it's because we know that they can do better, and we know that there's lots of those players who aren't living up to what we know that they're capable of. Lots might be a bit harsh. There's a handful of those players who aren't living up to what we know they're capable of, and you can forgive people an off week here and there, but can you forgive people an off month when we know that we've got people who are kind of chomping at the bit on the bench to come in and do their bit? I still think, I think that at the start of this season, I'll probably tip Villa to finish 16th or something like that. Halfway through the season, I'll probably tip Villa to finish in the top 8 when I was getting carried away. I'd settle for a compromise now that Villa finishing anywhere in the top 10. I think that would be amazing. Villa regularly hitting the heights of what they've done so far this season, just being a little bit better than they were today and then they were last week. So, I mean,
if you put it this way, Matt, look at the teams Villa are above: Wolves, Southampton, Tottenham, Arsenal, Burnley, and Newcastle. So if we're this kind, not sad or gutted or annoyed with the team, if we're feeling like this kind of I don't know what the correct word is, just a little bit unhappy with recent forms and performances. Imagine what they're feeling. We've got a game in hand on them too, in the case of Arsenal. So, we're in a real. It doesn't look sunny because of recent form, and the Brighton game was terrible, and this one was annoying as well. What must they be thinking? They must have had the world at their feet come the start of the season, and we're here sitting with a few games in hand, in the top half of the table. Other teams are really slipping away and have really fell off the wagon this year. Yeah,
agreed. I think that's probably a pretty decent place to wrap it up there, isn't it? Unless you've got anything else to add.
Matt had something to say. I interrupted him for once.
Mate, I was just about to peter out anyway, so you stopped. You were a convenient full stop to my rambling.
Yeah, we'll call it a day there. Thanks everyone who joined us live on Facebook and YouTube this afternoon. It's been good to chat, and we appreciate all the comments as always. If you're watching this after the fact or listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, then do leave us a review or tweet us at Clark Blue Pod, whatever it is you want to do. Get involved, engage with us, and we'll reply if we can be bothered. That's my own perspective, not anyone else's.
One thing, I've finally been Googling, I've found a definitive answer on how long Jack Grealish is out for. BBC are reporting that he's out for a month, and Dean Smith's reporting that he's going to be back next week. So, halve it, double it, whatever. And
that's 3 months then.
See what next week's team sheet brings.
Yeah, that probably decides wherever they're going to finish. If he's out for a period of time, then it's maybe top 10 is the best we can do. If it's a week or so, then maybe. Well, we're only, 4 points off 6 still? 36. Yeah, I mean, to say let's throw Europe away, which might still be the case. It's only 4 points away from Liverpool with 2 games in hand over them. So, if Grealish comes back and we pick up a bit of form, then who knows? But yeah, let's just get out of here before we start to dream again. Thank you very much for joining us, James and Matt. Thanks for all the fans who watched along live, and we'll catch you again after the next game.
Up the Villa.